so now is the time to talk about Franz Ferdinand. So I mentioned this is a blow-up of this, Austria-Hungary, Romania, right? This is what it looks like more specifically. Serbia, Romania, and Bulgaria. But this is the big C that we're talking about. This is how we're going in. And so Serbia is the one that we remember. Franz Ferdinand is touring Serbia. These are all independent countries. The fact is, they're independent, but Austria-Hungarian Empire still has a great influence, particularly on Serbia. And Serbia is not really that free. We're dealing with a balance of powers. What happens if Serbia says, I'm not going to listen to anything you say? Well, they're going to come in and be invaded, right? On the other hand, they can't ignore Serbian nationalism, because nationalism is just what everybody is experiencing. The nationalism is leading to the imperialism. Serbia has no empire. There's no Serbian colonies anywhere in the world, nor are there Bulgarian colonies, right? But there are some German colonies, not many Austrian colonies. These would be considered what they want to be their colonies. So we have the Ottoman Empire, Bulgaria, Romania, Serbia. The Archduke Franz Ferdinand, and this is difficult for us to understand because we don't deal with dukes and nobles and lords and barons and all that type of stuff. But an archduke simply means that this is the heir to the Holy Roman Emperor. In plain language, this guy is the prince, right? And Austria, the Austria-Hungarian Empire, is crowned emperor. So this archduke is going to be the next emperor. So he's not living in Serbia. He's just touring. He lives here, just like his dad, the emperor. So we're not talking about a kid. He's like 50 years old. So the Archduke Franz Ferdinand is touring through Serbia, and he's doing this just to make sure Serbia doesn't feel like it's too independent. Who wants Serbia to be independent? Russia. Russia wants Serbia to be independent, Romania to be independent, Bulgaria independent, and he really wants this part of the Ottoman Empire to break away from the Ottoman. And today it is. This is where Macedonia is, Greece goes in here. All these places are no longer Ottoman. But Russia wants to surge nationalism here, because if these guys become nationalistic, if the Macedonians think about Macedon first, then they won't be allied to the Austrians, and they won't be allied to the Ottomans. At this point, Russia has to go through the Ottoman Empire to get out, and the Ottomans aren't going to let them. Ottomans hate the Russians. So this is their goal.
Just going to tiptoe through Romania, Bulgaria, and Serbia.
So, well, they want the Navy. It's got to be the Navy. The Navy is the power. So their goal is to get Serbian national. So here, this is the setup. Franz Ferdinand is in a car. This is 1914. He's a royalty. He's in Serbia. He's touring through there, and one of these Serbian nationalists kills the Archduke. So who gets blamed when a Serbian nationalist kills Russia? Because Russia's been supporting nationalism. Now, did Russia order this assassination? No. There's absolutely no connection. Nevertheless, it's an opportunity. We have two sides that are really, frankly, eager to change the situation. Germany is very powerful militarily. They are developing the biggest weapons, the fastest tanks. They have underwater boats, submarines. Austria is not very strong militarily, but they are allied with Germany, right? So Germany wants to redress the balance. At the same time, Russia is just dying for an excuse to go through this area here. They want to. They're trying to have some excuse. And so even though they aren't responsible for the Serbian nationals being killed right here, if Austria declares war on Russia, what does that give Russia the justification to do? Plow through. And Austria is not a very strong country. So Russia thinks this will be their opportunity to send troops right in here and maybe go right to the Mediterranean, including all this area here. So Russia wants to fight. Austria is a weaker country, but who is its big friend? Germany. And Germany is dying to have an opportunity to fight. But Germany doesn't really care about this side. Where is Germany looking at? This side. And so what they say is that if we supply the Austrians, Austria can go and fight Russia, the Ottomans can go and fight Russia, we will go through and take over France. And their big friend, because France isn't very strong, is the English. But the English are off all by themselves. They're concerned about the world. They're concerned about empire. And they will take a long time to help. This is the eve of the war. If Germany, just out of the blue, says, I'm going to attack France, this would be like breaking the rule. They would be the bad guy. Nobody would support them. But if the Archduke Franz Ferdinand gets killed in Serbia and Russia doesn't apologize for it, then Austria can threaten Russia. Russia can threaten Austria, and because Germany is connected with them, Germany can use this to threaten Russia's ally. And who is Russia's ally? France and England. Do you see how this is a big thing? At the eve of the war, nobody wants to not fight. You understand this? At the eve of the war, they all think this is going to take 6 weeks. Because they all have a very inflated sense of their own power. Russia thinks that it's huge. They defeated Napoleon, right? So no one can stop the Russians. The English...
He defeated himself.
The English has... The sun never sets on the British Empire, so they really do have the strongest military. But at the same time, Germany has been building up this amazing technological weapon. So they think that nobody really appreciates their strength. They think that they can go through and plow through France before England even gets there. Everybody thinks this war will be done in 6 weeks. When Franz Ferdinand is shot, the United States gets involved, not as a military power. Remember, these guys are all pragmatic. The United States is ideological. So the United States sends notes to all the people involved. Sends a notes to the Russians, the Ottomans, to the Austrians, and say, you don't have to fight. If we can just sit down, we can talk about this, and we don't have to fight. We'll figure out who killed the Archduke. We'll come up with some solution. You don't have to fight. The United States is trying to not let this war happen. At the same time, the United States also sends notes to England, France, and Germany. It tells them, no matter what happens with Russia and Austria and Ottoman, you guys don't have to get involved. We do not need a war. Now, this was my first book, was on this subject. And so I read all those telegrams that came back and forth. And I also read the responses from Russia, from the Austrians, from the Germans, from the French, from the English. And it was very much the same. They all basically said very quickly, very shortly, saying, thank you. We appreciate your offer to help. Go away. Well, they used different words.
At least they said thank you.
Yeah, very diplomatic, very polite. Go away. The point is, they all wanted this war because they all thought that they were going to win. They all thought that after 6 weeks, we'd have a different balance of power. The United States didn't believe in balance of power. They didn't think that you should have alliances in order to be able to do what you're supposed to do. Look at this poor little Austria. not Austria, Switzerland. Switzerland, right smack in the middle.
Oh man.
Can they choose to be, what if they choose to be on the French side?
Well,
Because half of their population speaks French, then the Germans are going to attack them. What if they choose to be on the German side? Because half their population speaks German. Then the French are going to attack. They're just out of luck here. So they have to be neutral. But they have to be neutral in such a way that they basically say, we're not going to do anything, we're going to keep our hands up and our heads down, and that's it. They have to give up some of their sovereignty to be neutral. The United States says you shouldn't have to do that. You shouldn't have to worry about being attacked just because you're a small country. Ideologically speaking, every country should be respected. Its sovereignty should be respected. This is kind of goes back to the whole idea of life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Everybody has these certain rights. That's an ideological perspective. You could say it's a very romantic perspective. And that's the way Europeans looked at it. They thought the Americans were naive because they're very pragmatic. England doesn't care that the Russians are dictators. They just wanted somebody on the other side to be able to attack Germany. For the Americans, we were much less pragmatic. We thought everybody should have a rule of law, not rule by might. Does this make sense? So we asked all these people, we said, you don't need to fight. They told us to go away. So the next day, a week or two, they start the war, and what does the United States do? We declare neutrality. Not neutrality like Switzerland neutrality, but neutrality like we are going to continue to do what we've always done because we are not economically isolated. Well, not that one. We're not culturally isolated. We're not economically isolated. We talk to everybody. And just because there's a war going on, we're still going to be able to talk to all these people. And we are neutral. So don't hit our ships. Don't hit our people. We are neutral. Go ahead.
So after Wilson pledged neutrality, but we're still close trading partners with Britain.
But we are also trading partners with Germany.
Yeah.
So we weren't trading with one more than another. But
Pretty much
England
all
was
the,
easier because it's closer.
like all the ships that were going to Britain were either getting their damaged or sank because of the German mines. And then in 1915, Germany announced the unrestricted war.
Not 1950, 1970. So, no, it's okay. Let me give you a date line.
It said
So,
1915.
right.
in the
So,
stupid thing.
let me give you some dates. And I'm just going to give you one at a time. So what happens is that the United States says we're neutral. Now, of these two countries, England or Germany, which one is has a bigger navy? Which one is involved with more global trade?
The UK.
Clearly the UK. It's an empire. The sun never sets, right? So in terms of that reason alone, who are we more likely to trade with? England, okay. So, but that doesn't mean that we don't trade with Germany, because we do. And a lot of it because of Milwaukee, because of Iowa, because of the Midwest, very strong German. But Germany does not have a large naval trade. It just doesn't. So in terms of proportion, we're going to trade with England way more. But it is important that doesn't necessarily mean that we are in favor of UK or Germany. I'm going to warn you, your textbook is going to try to explain a complex thing and try to do a little bit more simple. And so one of the things they're going to say is that we got in this war to protect our economy. Go ahead.
With the thing with Germany, what I read said that they announced the unrestricted warfare against all ships, neutral or not, entering in the war zone around Britain in 1915. But then the U.S. said, Germany still kept destroying U.S. ships, and then the U.S. got really mad and talked to Germany and told them that they needed to make sure that they weren't hitting unarmed passenger ships and merchant ships. And then they did that for a while, but then the Germans kept destroying more boats, and then they went back and declared it again.
Okay, very close. Much, much closer.
The unrestricted,
Right,
or
that's what it
whatever.
is. What happened And this is where you
Because
remember about
that's
the
when they hit the
Lusitania.
atomic, yeah.
The Lusitania is sunk in 1915. The Lusitania is a British ship, but it's a passenger ship. It's not military, right? And on the Lusitania, which has got like 1,200 people, there's a couple of hundred Americans on this. The Lusitania is not a military ship. The Germans sink the Lusitania. Americans are on board. The United States is outrageous. Yeah, oh, absolutely, because the Lusitania is like the Titanic. That's how big it was. It was the sister ship to the Titanic. So it's a huge ship, right? It gets sunk. The United States is outraged about it. And the United States responds. So you're absolutely true. The U.S. demands that Germany respect neutrality. Respects neutrals, okay? Not just Americans, but non-military ships. So the rule is, and this is something that was part of the rules of war that came out like 1908, long before this war came out. The United States was part of this, so were some of the neutral Scandinavian countries. But the rules were, if you see a ship on the seas, and it's not a military ship, you can, if you are in a military ship, go to them with guns pointing at them, saying, we're going to board your vessel, we're going to see if you have any military supplies. If you do, we're going to let all the passengers off on lifeboats, and we're going to sink the ship, because that's right. If you don't, then we have to let you go. Those are the rules of war. Well, what's happening is that Germany didn't declare unrestricted warfare. They were just shooting without any concern. And the United States says you are violating the rules. And Germany says what? Okay.
They're like, okay.
Yeah.
And they
And this is
sink
important.
the Italian ship.
This is important. Oh, no. See, this is where the textbook doesn't have the ability to really explain this. We're not talking one ship. Lusitania is one famous ship. We're talking dozens and dozens and dozens of ships each month. So we're dealing with hundreds of ships. So when Germany says okay, they do stop. They try to fulfill this promise. The problem is, and this is where Jordan's going to get in here, and he's not going to have too much time here, but he's going to tell me a little bit about trench warfare. Trench warfare was not planned. Nobody decided on trench warfare, right? Tell me what trench warfare is.
Well, it's a tactic. Basically, it's a fighting tactic where you dig out ground, and then you just sitting there and you.
You're sitting duck.
Well, kind of. You just sit there and on your side, and the other guys are going to sit on the other side. And if you pop your head, you got a guy shooting at your head.
Okay. What's hard for us to understand is the distance.
Yeah.
Assume that this is UW Richland's campus.
Okay. Somebody.
Oh yeah.
And this is the high school.
No.
And this is the soccer field. That is how far away it is. That's the distance. That's literally the distance. Okay? Nobody planned on this. This doesn't fall under 6 weeks of war.
No.
This is what happened when you realize that both sides are equal. Germany wanted to go through Belgium into France, but they got stuck in Belgium. And the English, the Germans didn't expect this, but the English came across the channel super fast, and the English and the French were able to support the Belgians all on the one side, and the Germans were stuck, and they couldn't get past. And so they fell into these trench warfare. Now the rule here, militarily, is if you are an aggressor, if you are offense, you need to have a 3-to-1 ratio off of defense if you're going to win. The defender always has an advantage because all he has to do is stand here and pick off the people that are running towards him. If you are attacking, you have to have at least 3 times as many if you're going to overwhelm them. The problem is that they're equal. They're basically the same on either side. And so instead of having a 6-week war, we were having battles that used to be battles. If you remember Gettysburg, that was like a 3-day battle. These battles are lasting 9 months. and the bodies are literally piling up. And so the solution for the Germans is to cut off supplies using the submarines. And even though we had said that they would not be fighting, they agreed to this in 1915, by the time they get to 1916 and 17, the rules of war are killing them. Because their submarine has no defenses. It's supposed to be secret. You're supposed to blow that ship out of the water because you don't see it. That's why it's underwater. If you go up to that ship, you pop up and say, hey, are you a military ship? And the guy says, yeah. Boom. You've lost that German submarine. And the Germans are losing hundreds of submarines as a result. By the time they get to 1917, it's clear. They either do unrestricted submarine warfare or they give up. They're going to lose. And so that's what they did. But by declaring unrestricted submarine warfare in 1917, that meant that they are not respecting American neutrality, and so who goes into the war? The United States.
One of the U-boats sank, and right after they broke diplomatic relations.
Hundreds of ships.
They sank the Houston.
Yeah, hundreds of ships were sunk. And so the United States said
We
this
got
is an
permission
active
to get
war.
into that war really fast.
Oh, because
Like, we got
basically, not only that, we also have what was called the Zimmermann Telegram. We didn't talk about this, but the Zimmermann Telegram was Germany sending Mexico a note saying, hey, why don't you attack the United States? That way they won't be, they'll be distracted. This is the same kind of, pragmatism that anyone looks at. And if you do that, we'll give you back to Texas. As if Mexico had any possibility of distracting the United States. They didn't. But Germany was doing anything. When we uncover both the unrestricted warfare and the Zimmermann Telegram, our solution is we are at war. Whether we declare war or not, we are at war because they are attacking us. And so we are going to recognize that a state of war exists. And that's how the United States gets involved. Your job is to go through and look at World War I. Okay? And you have to ask yourself why the United States does not support the League of Nations. In order to make sure you understand this, this is an American idea. It's an American idea. It's not English, it's not French, it's not German, it's an American idea. And yet we decide not to join. I want you to look at that and find out why. That makes sense?